It was past midnight, and after hours of restless tossing and turning, I finally rose. To fetch a glass of water, the living room lights still flickered on a reminder of the night my brother, Casey, had sent Paul to stay with me the news of what had happened. To him weighed heavily in my heart. His wife had betrayed him, leaving his life in ruins. Paul, who had devoted years to the same woman, found himself blindsided, and the kid Casey's son was also struggling unable to cope with the turmoil. Jessica, please take him. And Casey had implored he needs some peace. I didn't know Paul well, but I understood that his despair stemmed from a woman's treachery. Our family had already endured so much loss, and now this felt like another blow. I lost my husband Jacob 7 years ago. When I was 60, he passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. One moment we were crafting our dream home, a vision set to be realized within. A year next, everything came to a halt. Jacob's death turned my world on its head, leaving me in solitude, and for years I have borne this profound emptiness within me. The weight of loneliness has been pressing down more heavily. Of late, tonight stands out as one of those nights. Are you prepared? This is no ordinary tale. It delves into the blurred lines of emotion, the spirals of chaos, and the silent cries of a confession yearning to break free. Each moment may ignite something profound within you, emotions you never realized lurking beneath the surface, challenging the limits you believed were unbreakable. If this resonates with the story you've been longing to discover, then go ahead and embrace it. Hit that subscribe button and activate notifications. Your support truly means everything to me. I gradually made my way to the living room in a few steps, and I spotted Paul sitting there and grin, a romantic movie on the screen. At that moment, my sole focus was ensuring that Paul could find some tranquility during his visit here. I was unaware if that life had different intentions. A series of misfortunes had already begun to unfold, and it would only require a single step, just one, to alter the course of everything. Paul glanced at me and inquired, "Did I wake you up?" His voice carried a unique blend, in a moment steeped in uncertainty and in a chilling longing for peace. I found myself standing there in my nightgown, yet the attire felt inconsequential. Never had experienced such profound loneliness as he did in that instant. "No," I replied, offering him a gentle smile. "I merely came to fetch some water." The truth was, in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of solitude. I wasn't ready for it to end just yet. Perhaps a little time spent with Paul could fill the void off night. Watching a movie together might restore a semblance of normalcy, a flicker of hope. That peace was still attainable. Leaning, watch it together, Paul. He gestured toward the vacant space in the couch beside him. The choice came easily. I yearned for the comfort of warmth and a touch of significance, so I settled beside him. The movie began, yet my attention wavered, ensnared by an inexplicable turmoil within me. Paul's presence loomed, a stranger seated so near, his voice tinged with a subtle nervousness that contrasted sharply with unfolding row on the screen. As the couple drew closer, memories I believe had long buried resist, prompting me to glance away. In a moment of distraction, I inadvertently brushed against Paul's arm. A jolt of surprise coursing through me, I recoiled, an apology spilling from my lips, my gaze fleeing in embarrassment. Paul paused, then offered a quiet nod, reassuringly, murmuring, "It's okay, refrain worry about it." But in that moment, the space between us somehow felt smaller. Movie kept playing, but nothing felt the same anymore. Neither Paul nor I could find any real peace in that moment. Even though we were sitting, it felt like if emptiness inside each of us kept getting in the way. I'd remember that night as the start of something more complicated than I could have imagined. That moment was like a signal of how everything was about to change. The night had taken a strange turn. Sitting there on the couch watching a romantic movie with Paul, the first couldn't help but feel like I was drawn to him, even though I was in my nightgown sitting so close to another man. After being alone for so long, there was this tension building up that I couldn't ignore. Paul's presence wasn't comforting. It was making me realize things maybe was because I'd been alone for years, but being so close to another man again, this way, it stirred something in me. It was confusing and weird, and I couldn't figure it out, but I was definitely feeling something for Paul. That it all started to become clear. I didn't relax for even a second until the movie ended, and when it did, I got up. I retreated to my room, settling onto my bed, allowing the stillness to envelop me. For a time, I found myself in need of contemplation. Mute, the subject eluded me. Slumbering amidst a tempest of emotions was far from a simple reset. The night was restless, filled with tossing and turning. As the weight of sleeplessness pulled mine to the dawn. As the new day unfolded, I found myself drawn to the piano, seeking solace in its keys to dispel the lingering unease within me. For nearly 7 years, solitude had been my constant companion. Each morning I yearned for some semblance Normally, the piano stood there, an old friend offering me a sliver of peace and evoking memories of Jacob as my fingers glided over the keys. I held on to the hope that this morning might grant me some respite, then a sound from outside broke. The stillness a shadow loomed before the window, revealing Paul, who had ventured out for an early morning stroll throughout the streets of the town. Initially, he slipped past my notice boot as the mail withdrew the air. He pushed open the front door and stepped inside while I continued to play oblivious to his presence until I unexpectedly glimpsed him standing there silently observing me. My fingers momentarily stilled, and that tension within me surged back more intense than before, yet Paul simply smiled. He looked at me as if nothing in the world was amiss, and it was a beautiful moment. "Thank you," he said honestly. "That's the best day gift I've ever received." Came with a rush of excitement as Paul walked in. It was as if the room transformed. I turned used to an entirely different entry, and then he spoke, his calm and genuine tone resonating in a way I had never encountered before. "What I just shared is undeniably true. Witnessing you, even for just a few minutes, was the most remarkable experience I've had in age." Sand, by the way, I turned 40 today. It didn't take long for me to recognize the way those words ignited something within me. Averted my gaze, attempting to reconcile the tumult of emotions with the warmth of his compliment, and that meant for the first time in years, I felt a sense of connection, a whisper of change in the air after the thrill off that morning. I found myself eagerly anticipating the evening. Learning it was Paul's 40th birthday sparked a desire to do something, anything to make that day feel normal, special. Even an idea struck me, and I turned to him. "It's your birthday today," I inquired. "Well, then shall we celebrate? How about we indulge in some wine and slice into a cake tonight?" Paul gave me a surprised smiley as if to say, "Well, if you're suggesting aguas tonight, might actually turn out to fun," he said, a playful glint dancing in his eyes. After a brief pause, he added with a teasing grin, "But there's a catch. You have to play the piano for me. No escaping it now." Laughing, I tried to shake off the nervousness building inside me. "All right," I replied, but only I've opened a good bottle of wine and apricot toast. That small exchange linked in my mind, leaving a deeper impression than I cared to acknowledge. Emotions bubbled beneath the surface, yet he stifled them, convincing myself that this was merely about creating a semblance of normalcy for one night. It was merely a birthday of modest celebration, nothing more yet, and that meant Paul uttered something unexpected, so casual yet so startled, threw me off. He looked at me with that same innocent expression and asked, "How old are you?" "At 45. I paused for a moment, caught in stillness. I had always an edge to embrace a sense of youthfulness, yet the sincerity of that compliment took me by surprise, and I found myself unable to resist a smile. "Not quite," I replied, brushing it off, yet it was difficult to conceal the flicker of excitement his words ignited within me. I felt as though we were being torn in two, caught between the warmth he exuded and the tempest of emotions I struggled to contain. By bedtime evening descended. Paul and I had uncorked our wine and nestled into a celebration of sorts. As we conversed, I found myself drawn closer to his warmth. Way he focused on me brought a sense of ease. There was an undeniable connection between us, a magnetic pull that intensified with each fleeting mint of voice within urged me to treat this as an ordinary night. But then Paul lifted his glass, a smile dancing on his lips, and with those lively eyes of his play, I inquired, "So when are y'all going to perform a piece for me? You understand that there's no escaping out." Even for a fleeting moment, after an enough hesitation, I inhaled deeply and declared, "All right, let's do." "What is that?" At the piano, allowing the melody to flow once more, hoping it would soothe the tempest within me with each note. I sensed to shift, a magnetic pull drawing me closer to him. Even as I became lost in the music, there was solace in the way he listened, in the way he cherished it. As if my playing held the weight of the world, what I had anticipated to be a simple celebration transformed into something profound. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of a feeling I had long forgotten, something genuine. My vision blurred as my fingers danced over the keys, each note awakening something deep within me, though I struggled to identify what it was. Paul's voice lingered faintly in my thoughts. It seemed as though my heart and my mind were gradually separating from one another. I found myself utterly adrift in the midst of it all. I found myself unaware of when to cease, my hands instinctively erring for another melody. Suddenly Paul appeared beside me, placing his hands gently over mine. "You're an amazing woman," he said. He spoke, his voice gently and slightly unsteady, and he played the piano so beautifully. His words reverberated in my mind, creating an odd void. His warm hands resting on mine had a way of anchoring me, even as my feelings descended into deeper turmoils. "Be honest, dear. Feeling worn out," has spoke gently, his voice steady and comforting. "How about we take a moment to relax on the couch?" With a gentle touch, Paul guiding me to the couch, and I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions unable to fully grasp the significance of. The moment as I settled down, my thoughts continued to swirl, and then Paul returned to the piano. I watched in awe as his hands glided effortlessly over the keys, and suddenly he began to play my favorite melody. Instantly I recognized at the song that had resonated within me for years, always stirring something profound with each note. He played, my heart raced, enveloped in the magic of the music brought back memories I wasn't prepared to confront. Is that there, absorbing the music that enveloped the room, igniting a spark within me. Eventually I could no longer remain still. The melody he played beckoned me, drawing me in as if it were a siren call. Slowly I approached him, attempting to soothe the turmoil in my chest. Standing beside him, I found myself at a loss for words. You're really good at this, I managed to say, my voice quiver as I struggled to conceal the rapid thumping of my heart while you played my favorite song. My words hung in the air, reverberating through the room as my emotions collided within me. Who might you be, Paul? The first asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You're religiting to me. I've never felt like this before. I was entirely engulfed by a whirlwind of emotions, confusing accident, terror, and joy all intertwining. Our eyes locked, and the proximity between us was palpable. I could sense his breath gazing into high sighs. It was as if I were plunging into an alternate reality, and in that instant time ceased to exist. The way he regarded me set my heart racing, enveloping me in warmth. In that fleeting moment it felt as though we were the sole inhabitants of the universe, and everything else faded away, creating a profound clarity in the chaos of life. In that moment it was just the two of us. The world around us faded into oblivion, and clarity washed over me in a way I had never experienced before. My gaze was locked onto his, and for a fleeting instant the thing else held significance. All the confusion, fear, and chaotic thoughts evaporated, leaving only Paul and me in your own universe. His hands rested lightly on my waist, firm enough to ensure me, yet gentle enough to allow me to breathe. My head spun, and I couldn't discern whether it was the wine or the torrent of emotions coursing through me. Without Paul's steady presence I feared he might falter the depth, and his eyes drew me closer, and in that instant his warmth enveloped me, instilling a profound sense of safety that provided balance I desperately needed in the midst of all the turmoil. It is essential to find a moment to pause and rejuvenate, whispered, gently leading me to the couch. His words wrapped around me like a soothing balm, yet the sensation of his hands resting on my waist stirred a mix of comfort and unease within me as I settled into my seat. His hands remained for a fleeting moment, and once more rays found each other, locked in an unspoken connection. I was completely unaware what to say or how to feel. The warmth of his touch made the night unforgettable and powerful in a way I couldn't quite explain. That night on the couch turned into one of the most thrilling, unforgettable nights of my life. Everything happened so quickly that I barely had time to process it all. For morning came when I opened my eyes. I got up and walked toward the living room. The smell of coffee wafted in from the kitchen, pulling me out of my half-asleep state, and there he was, Paul, standing in the kitchen, shirtless, making coffee. His body, still warm and strong from the night before, was on full display. I knew how thinking back to last night sent this strange sensation through my whole body, and at the same time replaying the night in my head only made me feel nervous yet excited at the same time. Replaying the night in my head only made and feel more confused about what was going to happen now. How could I even begin to figure that out? But one thing was clear, there was a connection between us I never felt before. This night, this moment, felt like the start of something that could change my life forever. Paul turned from the kitchen, his eyes softened, his smile warm as silence, and enveloped us thick with unspoken words. As I stood there watching him, I grappled with the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. I felt utterly lost, unsure of what to do next or how to move forward. In that moment, I was completely caught up, yet I sensed a shift, an inevitable change looming ahead. Standing there as Jessica, I felt a tumultuous blend of excitement and confusion swirling within. Since last night, nothing had made sense. Everything had unfolded so rapidly. My clothes lay strewn across the floor, and as I glanced at them, I closed my eyes for a brief moment, shaking my head slightly. The complexity of it all overwhelmed me. I couldn't decipher my thoughts, let alone my feelings. I quickly rose and made my way to the bathroom. I needed a shower chance to clear my mind and step away from the emotional whirlwind that threatened to engulf me. My nightgown and underwear remained where they were, irrelevant, and that meant all I craved was to lose myself under the cascade of hot water, to escape chaos, if only for a fleeting moment. After a while I emerged from the shower, wrapping myself in a towel, when suddenly the door swung open. Paul stood there, and for a moment I was paralyzed. Neither of Us moved, our eyes met, and held lock in a gaze so intense it felt as if fuel had ceased its spinning. I was at a loss, the confusion swirling within. Me must have been evident, leaving me feeling utterly exposed and vulnerable, yet despite that, I couldn't suppress the words that surged forth, spilling out in a rush. "I don't even know what's going on," said my voice, trembling slightly. "What we're doing, I know it's so wrong, but it feels like I'm dreaming." Paul took another step closer. His eyes were a tempest of conflicting emotions, leaving us both uncertain of what lay ahead. I yearned to speak, to break the silence, but the words eluded me, trapped in the depths of my mind. "Or cough is prepared and waiting for you." Paul spoke, his voice trembling slightly as my gaze fell upon him. It struck me how chaotic and yet oddly beautiful everything was, a reflection of my disregard for the future. In that fleeting moment, as I settled into my chair with a warm cup of coffee, a tempest of confusion swirled within my heart. Across from me sat Paul, our eyes meeting in a silent exchange, each glance a reminder of the whirlwind that had unfolded between us. It all transpired so swiftly that I struggled to grasp the depth of our actions. What emotions lingered beneath surface that I longed to articulate in search of clarity amidst the chaos? Right words eluded him. "Jessica," Paul began, his voice heavy with emotion, what did was so wrong. I'm aware of that. Why did we allow this to unfold?" His eyes reflected guilt, yet there was an understanding. He recognized, as I did, that events had spiraled beyond our grasp. We ought to feel regret. This was a path we should have never taken. I had in it. There was a moment of stillness. My thoughts became entangled, yet at last I discovered my voice. Yet perhaps it all unfolded too quickly. Yet it wasn't right. We allowed complexities to weave their way in, and now in hindsight it all seems so nonsensical. This was a misstep for both of us. I remarked. A heaviness settled upon my chest, yet an odd sense of relief washed over me as I acknowledged the truth. We had both crossed a line. Paul fell silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the floor before finally lifting his eyes to meet mine. "Let's pretend this never happened," Jessica said, his voice steady yet gently. "Think for both our sakes, we need to leave this behind. What benefit could arise from prolonging this, especially when everything is already in disarray? Need distance from one another." When he spoke those words, something within me stirred. He was correct. Persisting in this would only bring us both pain. "Yes," I replied, inhaling deeply. "Perhaps this is for the best. If you choose to depart, perhaps that is the answer. It seems to be the most beneficial option for both of us." Paul nodded, his demeanor resolute. "I need to do this," he said. "It's the right thing for both of us." We sat in silence for a few seconds, just looking at each other. In that moment, we both realized how important this decision was, accepting that what we had done during those dark moments was just a mistake, facing that truth might be the first step in the pursuit of rectifying our circumstances. It became clear that rather than entangling ourselves further, granting each other the necessary space was the most viable path ahead. I trust you found my narrative engaging. This journey has been incredibly thrilling, and sharing it with you has brought my immense joy. If you're interested in hearing more tales like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when a new episode is released. Your likes and comments truly mean everything to me. Hearing your thoughts and feelings is incredibly uplifting. Your support is invaluable. Thank you all immensely for your support in this creative journey. I look forward to sharing the next story with you.